All right, with one game left in week 10, I'm heading towards week 11 with you guys and looking at the waiver wire pickups of the week. I got 10 names and some honorable mentions. I think this is a very good list. A lot of potential league winners as well on this list for you. Do me a favor, why don't you drop a comment and let me know the worst bust on your fantasy team this week. Let me know who cost you that win, or if you won, let me know how you won. Drop a like, subscribe. All right, let's start with some honorable mentions just quickly. These are names that are honorable mentions that I think should either already be rostered in leagues or names that didn't make my top 10. Okay, it's a combination of those two. Kadarius Toney, we don't know what Juju's injury is going to look like long term, but Kadarius Toney's usage was very, very intriguing with Kansas City this week. He should absolutely be rostered in every format. He would be my number one pickup on this week, but I assume he's already rostered in your leagues. And he could be a true league winner. I guess Gus Edwards should also be rostered. Slayton is kind of working into that rotation there with the Giants. He's been the most fantasy reliant wide receiver there. Westbrook-Ikhine had a big spike week. I don't think it's going to continue, but I put him on here. And then Samaje Perine, more to highlight handcuffs. Handcuff your players and handcuff other players if you have, or other people's running backs. Handcuff your running backs, and you know, if your opponents don't have their running backs handcuffed, it just takes one injury for you to have an RB1 or 2. All right, at number 10, Nico Collins, who is currently rostered in 19% of sleeper leagues. This was Nico's first game back from a 2-game absence where he was dealing with an injury. He led the team in snaps and in targets. He had 10 total targets. Anytime a wide receiver put up 10 total targets, we can't just ignore that. That is something that we definitely need to take into account. I'm going to be willing to use about 15% of my fab here, depending how desperate I am at the wide receiver position. But this is someone who could develop into a flex option heading into the playoffs. I mean, he out-snapped and out-targeted Brandon Cooks on his own team. At number 9, how about a tight end, Isaiah Likely? He was on my waiver wire list as well 2 weeks ago. Currently rostered in 32% of sleeper leagues. Last time out, he only had 1 reception. A lot of people thought it could be a good game versus the Saints on Monday Night Football. He only had 1 reception, but he finished as a top 10 tight end because that 1 reception was a receiving touchdown. He also had 5 targets, so it's not as if that was the only target he saw. He had 5 targets while playing 76% of the snaps. If Mark Andrews misses this week again, Likely will be a top 10 play for us at the tight end position. If Mark Andrews plays, then it's still going to be very intriguing to see what Likely's role will be in an offense that desperately needs playmaking pass catchers now that Rashad Bateman is out for the rest of the season. So I'm willing to use about 15% of my fab, depending on how desperate you are at tight ends. I think I have some better long-term options at the tight end position that we'll talk about in a second. At number 8, Donovan Peoples-Jones, DPJ, currently rostered in 49% of sleeper leagues. In the past 4 games, Donovan Peoples-Jones is averaging 12.4 PPR fantasy points. He had 9 targets this week, which led the wide receiver core. It's clear that he is the second receiving option in this team right behind Amari Cooper. And when DeShaun Watson comes back, we could be looking at a potential weekly flex play in Donovan Peoples-Jones. He very much reflects what Will Fuller was for Deshaun Watson in Houston. He is a similar body type, similar athleticism and speed. So he's involved right now with Jacoby Brissett. I think Cooper is still going to be the wide receiver 1, but Donovan Peoples-Jones could be a reliable flex option in the playoffs for people when Deshaun Watson comes back. I'm willing to spend about 15 to 20% of my fab on DPJ. All right, at number 7, let's talk about another tight end, and that is Foster Moreau, who is currently rostered in 31% of sleeper leagues. This is very simple. It doesn't need to be any harder. You know, like, this is simple. Darren Waller's out on IR. Hunter Renfrow is out on IR. So the second and third receiving options on this team will not be here for at least the next 3 games. Foster put up 43 yards and 1 touchdown last week in week 10. He played over 90% of the snaps in every single game where Darren Waller hasn't been healthy. When streaming the tight end position, this is exactly what you're looking for at the tight end streaming, like in the streaming option. Opportunities, snap share, red zone targets. That's what you're getting with Foster Moreau. So if you want a reliable option until Darren Waller comes back, I'm willing to spend about 15 to 20% of my fab. I want to stay around that 15% mark. But again, if you're someone like me who has Taysom Hill and right now doesn't feel like they're really utilizing him anymore, like maybe I will look and try and find a safer floor in a Foster Moreau. All right, at number 6, I have someone, I don't want to say a league winner, potential flex play is what I'll say, with sneaky upside. And that is Treylon Burks, who is currently rostered in 44% of sleeper leagues. Nick Westbrook-Akini was the star last week, but I don't think that that's something that you're going to be able to rely on a weekly basis. And every single game before that, he wasn't really a reliable play. I think Burks really opened up a lot. You could see how the secondary and how the coverage was really favoring Burks, which led to more opportunities for other players, which actually favors, like, that's a good thing for Burks moving forward. I don't think Westbrook-Akini is a long-term answer, so I don't think that they're going to prioritize him over Burks. Keep in mind, this was Burks' first game back off of IR when he was dealing with that toe injury, so you have to anticipate them slowly working him into the game. Even despite that, he still matched his career high in targets at 6, and in 11 personnel, he played 27 of 30 snaps. In 12 personnel, he played 7 of 18 snaps. In other formations, run-heavy formations, he wasn't really on the field. But to be honest, for our receiving option on that team, that's not really what we're worried about too much anyway. So this could have been actually the highest snap total of his career, but the game script wasn't really in favor of him being out there. I fully anticipate us seeing Burks' role continually grow over the next couple weeks. And I think there's a scenario in which he can be a flex play moving forward. Think about what Russell Gage was for the Falcons last year in the playoffs. I mean, I won a fantasy championship in my home league, and Russell Gage helped me in quite a few of those games because he was one of the only reliable options on his team. First round talent, very talented player, starting to figure it out. Treylon Burks, I'm willing to spend about 20 to 25% of my fab on him. Want to stay around that 20% range. It depends on your desperation. And at number 5, I have my last tight end on this list, which is Cole Kmet, rostered in 53% of sleeper leagues. In the past 3 weeks, Kmet has 5 touchdowns and is averaging 18.1 PPR points per game. One of the busts of the year is slowly turning it around, and it's connected to a Justin Fields breakout, which you'd love to see. This Bears offense is ascending. He's been a huge beneficiary of Fields' play. He's going to continue to be a red zone threat. We can't turn a blind eye to this production. In the past 2 weeks, he's averaging 6.5 targets per game. So he's going to continue to be a red zone threat. He's going to continue to get more and more involved in an offense that is ascending. So Cole Kmet is one of those tight ends where, hey, how many can you really start with any sort of reliability? We're starting to see some sort of consistency for Kmet. So I'm willing to add him. I'm going to spend about 20% on my fab to get him on my squad. All right, at number 4, if you're streaming the quarterback position, or if you're in a 2 quarterback or a super flex league, this is really aimed towards you. And let's talk about D-Shaun Watson, who is currently rostered in 45% of sleeper leagues. 2 games left until D-Shaun Watson is back on an NFL field starting for the Cleveland Browns. Let's not talk about what we think about him as a person. Everyone's going to have their opinions on that, and that's fine. But as a player, we know he is an elite fantasy quarterback. He has proven that 3 years. Every year that he's been a starter, really, he's never failed to finish outside the top 5 at the quarterback position. In the last 3 years, as a starting quarterback, he put up 100 total touchdowns through the air and on the ground while completing 68.7% of his passes. So, if you missed out on the Fields pickup, maybe Watson could be that guy who has a couple games before the fantasy playoffs start, and maybe he could win you a fantasy championship if you're streaming the position. All right, at number 3, let's talk about a running back who is technically a handcuff, but his role is continually growing. And that is Jaylen Warren, who is currently rostered in 37% of sleeper leagues. Najee just had his best rushing performance of the year. Honestly, maybe Najee should be considered a sell high at this point. Still didn't get over 10 fantasy points. But despite Najee having his best rushing performance of the year, Jaylen Warren is continually, slowly but surely working into that opportunities that Najee Harris was seeing. Najee had 48 lone snaps this week versus Warren's 34. Warren is clearly the third down back. He's getting more opportunities in the air ever since Claypool moved on. And he's one of those players where the eye test alone is making most of us ask the question, why isn't he playing more than Najee Harris? And I think the refs are also well aware of that as well. And they're going to continue to try to get him involved. He has the juice that we don't see from Najee right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if that at the end of the year, we see Jaylen Warren as the lead running back in this backfield, as crazy as that sounds. So if you're desperate at the RB position, I'm spending about 20 to 25% of my fab on Jaylen Warren. All right, these next two players, I genuinely think could be league winners. I think they genuinely will help win people, or let me say, I think they genuinely can. There's a high percentage chance that they could help people win fantasy championships this year. At number 2, let's talk about Christian Watson, currently rostered in just 18% of sleeper leagues. He led the team in targets with 8, which by the way is a whopping 40% of the target share. The second closest player on the team was Allen Lazard with 4 targets, half of the targets that Christian Watson saw. On those 8 targets, he put up 4 receptions for 107 yards and 3 touchdowns. And this shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, I already have Watson picked up in a couple home leagues because they have been trying to get Christian Watson involved. It's just he's been injured or dealt with the concussions, and that's really held him back. But now with no Romeo Doubs, no Randall Cobb, both are dealing with injuries, the opportunities are there for Christian Watson. The talent is there. We saw him drop a couple balls on earlier, but the good news is that he finished the game extremely strong with 3 touchdowns. Believe it or not, Watson's 25% target rate this season is behind only Chris Olave and Drake London amongst rookies. So the Packers aren't throwing the ball as much as many other teams this year. They're really focusing on the ground. And they desperately now need someone to be an X factor in this wide receiver room. And that could be Christian Watson. Could he finally be stepping into real opportunity? You know, Allen Lazard's still going to play a part, but Allen Lazard can't offer you what Christian Watson can as an athlete, as a prospect. So this is very interesting, very intriguing. Hey, if it was only 1 touchdown for 1 catch and 60 yards, it's like, okay, well, that's a little bit concerning on 3 targets. But when you get 8 targets and you get 40% of the target share from your team, you get 3 touchdowns and you convert on that, you gain trust with Aaron Rodgers, we could genuinely be talking about a league-winning wide receiver, and the schedule isn't too bad upcoming. So the connection with Rodgers is growing, the trust is there. I'm willing to spend about 30% of my fab, somewhere around there, 30, 35, 25%, somewhere around there, if I need a flex option on my team. We're getting later into the season, guys, and if you got all your fab saved up, these 2 players, I think, are the players that you should really be targeting. And obviously, Kadarius Toney would be in that list as well. He would be number 1 on my list. But as I mentioned, I think he's already going to be rostered in most of your formats. All right, at number 1, a running back that I think truly could be a league winner this year. And I brought him up 2 weeks ago on our trade. Actually, I think it was 3 weeks ago now. I can't remember. But I brought him up on our trade 4 videos that we do on our channel. I thought he could take the job, and he is slowly doing that. Rachaad White, currently rostered in 56% of sleeper leagues. Before the game, he was named the starter, his first start ever in the NFL, and he took every snap on the first drive for the Tampa Bay Bucks. He finished the game with 22 touches, had 105 yards on the ground. The eye test was good. He had some nasty runs. Rachaad out-touched Lenny 22-15. He out-snapped Lenny 48-22. Plus, they won, which is important because we've heard many reports from this team willing to move on to younger players if it means they can change the atmosphere and kind of start getting some wins rolling for this squad. Important to know, obviously, that Leonard Fournette left the game with a hip injury and did not return, which, I mean, you can make a case as to why Lenny, didn't have more touches or more snaps, but you could also make the opposite side of the case of if Lenny's going to be dealing with an injury, Rachaad White could truly be a league-winning running back. When it comes to how much fab I'm spending, how much do you have left? That's the kind of, I am more than willing to blow it all fab-wise for Rachaad White, a potential league winner, a running back connected to Tom Brady in Tom Brady's offense. A lot of it was on the ground this week, but if Lenny's going to miss time, he'll get a ton of work in the air. He's a great receiving running back. So there's truly top 15 to 20 upside here for Rachaad White if Lenny misses time. And even if he doesn't, Rachaad White already entered today as a starter. So this is a very, very intriguing pickup. Let's say I have $80 of 100 fab left. I am going to put $80 on Rachaad White. Now, there's always going to be people who are going to comment and disagree with these type of takes. That's fine. But if we're in week 11 and you're not going to blow it all on a potential league winner, what exactly are you waiting for? What are you going to use that fab on? So I'm going to take a chance, fully knowing that it's not any guarantee Rachaad White is a league winner, but all the signs are there. The process is right, if you will. So those are my waiver wire pickups heading into week 11. I think it's a really good list, and there's a lot of players that could really help people win some championships this season. Comment down below. Let me know who you're picking up. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you in a future video.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/fantasylandfam.